It's May the 29th, 2024, at the Evin Cafe in northeast London. At about 9:20 p.m, a powerful motorbike sped up to the restaurant and a masked gunman opened fire, squeezing off 6 shots in barely 2 seconds. 3 men sitting at an outdoor table scrambled and dove for cover. 1 bullet pierced into the restaurant's interior and struck a 9-year-old girl in the head. The little girl, who had been happily eating ice cream with her family, collapsed to the floor, critically wounded. Outside, the 3 men who had been targeted were also writhing in pain with gunshot wounds to their legs and back. The gunman sped off on the motorcycle and vanished into the night. It was a brazen drive-by shooting in a busy public place, and an innocent child now hovered between life and death.
Shooting, Dalston. Apparently someone got shot, Turkish team. This is happening in Hackney.
Police would soon reveal that this bloody attack was the latest escalation in a long-running gangland feud between 2 rival Turkish organised crime groups in London, the Tottenham Turks and the Hackney Turks. This feud, a bitter turf war rooted in decades of rivalry and revenge, had already claimed dozens of lives on the streets. London has a long-established Turkish and Kurdish community, and along with it, elements of organised crime that took root decades ago. By the 1970s and 80s, Turkish gangs had become major players in the European drug trade. As the UK became Europe's largest market, certain Turkish-led syndicates seized control of the supply lines. One notorious figure was Hüseyin Beybasin, nicknamed the Emperor, who by the 1990s was said to be responsible for importing up to 90% of the UK's heroin. Under Beybasin's reign, the Hackney gang amassed wealth and power. Beybasin was so influential that police dubbed him Europe's Pablo Escobar, before he was eventually jailed in the Netherlands in 2001. Leadership of the Hackney Turks passed to Beybasin's younger brother, Abdullah Beybasin, who used a wheelchair after surviving an assassination attempt in the 1980s. He was a shadowy figure. Under surveillance, he spoke only in whispers while followers kissed his hand in respect. He was convicted in the UK in 2006 for running a mafia-type extortion and drug conspiracy, though that conviction was later quashed. He returned to Turkey in 2010 after legal troubles in Britain, only to be arrested there as well. By the late 2000s, the Beybasin family had established the Hackney Turks as a dominant force in London's drug underworld. Rising to challenge them was another faction from North London, the Tottenham Turks, sometimes called the Tottenham Boys. The Tottenham Turks were a rival Turkish crime group based in the Tottenham area, and their leadership eventually coalesced around the Eren family. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, these groups maintained an uneasy coexistence, each profiting from the lucrative narcotics trade. But competition for territory and drug markets simmered beneath the surface. All it needed was a spark to ignite open warfare. The spark came in early 2009, during what seemed like a minor scuffle that would explode into a full-blown gang war. In the pre-dawn hours of 24th January 2009, members of the Tottenham Turks and Hackney Turks crossed paths at the Manor Club, a snooker-hall near Manor House in North London. Present that night were Kamal Armağan, a leading figure of the Hackney crew, and at least 3 men from the Tottenham side: İzzet Eren, his cousin Kamal Eren, and an associate named Mehmet Sempelit. Accounts vary on who instigated the clash, but according to police intelligence, Kamal Armağan approached the Tottenham group and an argument ensued, quickly escalating into a brawl. One report suggests it might have been a slap that set things off. Regardless, punches were thrown and tempers flared, and club security had to intervene. When the dust settled, Kamal Arman had been beaten up badly. Humiliated and enraged, Arman reportedly swore revenge for the indignity he suffered that night. "I'm old school. I'll sort it out myself," Kamal Arman told police afterward, indicating he intended to settle the score personally. This seemingly small altercation would prove to be the opening event in a vicious cycle of retaliation. The fallout from the snooker-hall fight was immediate and violent. The bad blood between the two groups burst into the open, and London would witness a tit-for-tat war in its wake. In March 2009, in what was believed to be a reprisal by the Tottenham Turks, a property linked to the Hackney gang came under attack. The E5 Turkish social club, a known hangout, was sprayed with machine gun fire. Bullets riddled the walls of the club, injuring no one, but it was a brazen warning shot from the Tottenham side. The response from the Hackney Turks was swift. Later that March, Ahmet Paytak, 50, was shot dead in a convenience shop on Hornsey Road in Holloway. Paytak's shop had links to the Tottenham Turks associate Mehmet Senpalit, and prosecutors later described Paytak's murder as an act of immediate revenge by the Hackney leadership. The hitmen, who wore motorcycle helmets during the killing, were alleged to have been hired killers working for the Hackney Turks. 2 men were eventually convicted for Paytak's murder. Prosecutors said Kamal Arman himself had ordered the hit, though Arman fled and remained wanted for that crime. With blood now spilled, the Tottenham faction answered. In September 2009, the new leader of the Tottenham Turks, İzzet Eren, narrowly survived an assassination attempt. Gunmen fired 12 shots at him, but he escaped unharmed, continuing the cycle of attempts on each other's kingpins. The very next month, on the 2nd of October, the Tottenham Turks suffered a loss. Oktay Erbaşlı, a close associate of the Eren family, was shot dead by a motorbike-riding assassin. Erbaşlı was ambushed while driving a Range Rover. Tottenham retaliated just days later with another ruthless attack. On the 5th of October, 3 days after Erbaşlı's murder, gunmen armed with a submachine gun opened fire inside the E5 social club in Hackney, the same club that had been shot up in March. Bullets sprayed across the crowded club, tragically killing 21-year-old Cem Düzgan. Düzgan was not thought to be an intended target. He was an innocent party caught in the carnage. Investigators later suggested this machine gun attack was ordered by Kamal Eren of the Tottenham side as revenge for the killing of his friend Oktay Erbaşlı. By the end of 2009, North London had been rocked by an unprecedented wave of gang violence, and the feud's casualty list was growing. Despite the heavy police attention this spate of violence must have drawn, the feud continued into the new decade with no sign of truce. The years 2010 to 2013 saw further assassination attempts and murders as each gang hunted the other's leadership. Kenan Aydogdu, a member of the Hackney Turks, was one survivor of this period's mayhem. He endured multiple attempts on his life. In 2009, Aydogdu had already been shot in the leg while riding in the same car as Ali Arman, Kamal Arman's brother. And in 2010, as he drove through London, a gunman sprayed his vehicle with 10 bullets, once again hitting Aydogdu in the legs. Remarkably, he survived both incidents, but these attacks underscored how relentless and personal the feud had become. The feud claimed one of its most prominent victims on the 1st of February 2012. On that day, Ali Arman, a senior leader of the Hackney Turks and brother to Kamal Arman, was shot dead in his car outside Turnpike Lane Tube Station in North London. It was a carefully planned execution. The subsequent investigation revealed that 3 men were later convicted of helping orchestrate this hit, specifically for informing a Tottenham Turks leader of Arman's whereabouts. According to prosecutors, Kamal Eren had been the one directing the assassins to kill Ali Arman. Shortly after Ali Arman's murder, British police sought Kamal Eren for questioning. but he had already fled the UK to Turkey to avoid arrest. In a twist of fate, later that same year, Kemal Eren was shot in Turkey. Gunmen ambushed him in the town of Elbistan, and Kemal Eren was left paralyzed from his injuries. This attack may have been revenge from the Hackney Turks, but it was never confirmed. With Kemal Eren effectively taken out of action, leadership of the Tottenham Turks consolidated around his relatives, particularly Zafer Eren, Izzet's older brother. On the 18th of April 2013, the reigning leader of the Tottenham Turks was shot dead in broad daylight in the Southgate area of North London. It is widely believed that the Hackney Turks ordered Zafer's assassination as payback for their own losses. His younger brother, Izzet Eren, immediately took over as head of the Tottenham Turks after Zafer's death. By 2013, the feud had tallied numerous dead on both sides, including gang leaders, family members, and even innocent bystanders. As one detective later said, over the span of roughly 2 decades, this feud between the Tottenham Turks and Hackney Turks was suspected to be behind more than 20 murders in London and across Europe. With Izzet Eren now leading the Tottenham Turks, the feud entered a new chapter, one that increasingly spanned international boundaries. In 2014, Izzet Eren struck a blow abroad. While in Turkey, Izzet allegedly hunted down people responsible for his brother Zafer's killing. In the resort town of Bodrum in 2014, Izzet shot and killed one man and left another permanently paralyzed. After returning to the UK, Izzet was eventually arrested on unrelated drug charges. Upon completing a UK prison sentence in 2015, he was deported back to Turkey to face justice for the Bodrum shooting. A particularly dramatic episode unfolded later in 2015 when Izzet Eren escaped from prison and smuggled himself back into the UK, where he was stopped by police on a stolen motorbike with another man on the 13th of October 2015, armed with a pistol and a Scorpion submachine gun. Both guns were loaded with the safety catches off, and police believed they were on their way to avenge the murder of Izzet's brother, Zafer. Instead, Izzet was arrested and charged with serious firearms offences. In December 2015, as Izzet Eren was being transported in a prison van to Wood Green Crown Court for a sentencing hearing, the Tottenham Turks made an audacious attempt to break him free. The Metropolitan Police had received intelligence that an escape was going to be tried, and they set up an armed operation to thwart it. During the attempted breakout, armed accomplices of the Tottenham Turks converged near the prison van. In the confrontation, police marksmen shot dead a man named Jermaine Baker, one of Izzet's gang members. This police shooting of Jermaine Baker became a high-profile case in its own right, prompting an inquiry, but it also spotlighted the lengths to which the gang war was playing out in the streets of London. Ultimately, Izzet Eren was sentenced to 14 years in prison for the firearms offences related to that foiled revenge hit. In a deal between UK and Turkish authorities, in August 2019, Izzet was transferred to Turkey to serve the remainder of his sentence. Astonishingly, he escaped again from a Turkish prison just a month later, in September 2019. This fugitive gang boss then disappeared into the criminal underworld, managing to remain on the run even as authorities on 2 continents hunted him. According to later intelligence, Izzet eventually surfaced in Eastern Europe, understood to have traveled to Ukraine, from where he crossed the border to Moldova, along with refugees fleeing the war with Russia. In 2020, the feud was jolted by another personal tragedy. Hüseyin Eren, the younger brother of Izzet and Zafer Eren, was murdered while on holiday in Turkey that year. Hüseyin's killing deeply upset the Tottenham Turks, as it struck yet another blow to the Eren family. Police sources later testified that Hüseyin Eren's murder triggered a fresh wave of violence in London. The Metropolitan Police linked the Tottenham Turks to 3 fatal shootings in London in 2020 alone. all believed to be retaliation for Hussein's death. Additionally, authorities issued multiple threat-to-life warnings that year, indicating they had intelligence on credible plots to kill individuals, all connected to this feud. One of the most brutal cases in this phase of the feud was the kidnapping and killing of 43-year-old London Turkish radio DJ Mehmet Koray Alpergin in October 2022. Koray and his girlfriend, Gözde Dalbudak, were ambushed outside his flat in Enfield after a night out in Mayfair. They were forced into a van and taken to the Stadium Lounge, an empty bar off White Hart Lane in Tottenham. She was locked in a toilet for 2 days. He was stripped naked and tortured before his body was dumped in Essex woodland. In court, the judge said this was not random street crime, but a planned operation carried out in the context of serious organized crime, with senior figures using young associates to do the work, and she directly linked the violence to the Tottenham Turks' Organised network. Dylan Weatherly from Tottenham was convicted of manslaughter, kidnap and false imprisonment over Alpergin's death, and the judge said his ongoing association with the Tottenham Turks was an aggravating factor. She also told the jury that the principal movers behind the torture and killing have so far escaped justice. What makes this even more important for the feud story is that Weatherly was already serving a life sentence for a separate hit job tied to the same gang. He had been convicted to murder over a targeted shooting on the 7th of January 2023 in Enfield, North London, where a 27-year-old man linked to the rival side, named in reports as Ibrahim Gumush, was ambushed and shot in a car outside a funeral gathering in Ponders End, but survived. Prosecutors described that shooting as a Tottenham Turks ordered assassination attempt. On the Hackney side, plots of revenge were also brewing. One particularly intricate plot centered on a man named Beytullah Gündüz, an individual with tangled ties to both gangs. Gündüz had been accused of involvement in the 2013 murder of the Tottenham boss, Zafer Eren, though he was acquitted at trial and never convicted for it. Despite the acquittal, the Tottenham Turks believed Gündüz had a hand in Zafer's death. In retaliation, Kemal Eren allegedly placed a £200,000 contract on Beytullah Gündüz's head. Gündüz managed to avoid being killed under that contract, but he didn't escape unscathed. In August 2020, as he arrived at his solicitor's office in London, a motorbike gunman shot Gündüz in the neck at close range. Miraculously, he survived that attempt on his life. By early 2024, tension was extremely high. Kemal Armağan was believed to be plotting his most audacious revenge yet, and he certainly held İzzet Eren responsible for years of bloodshed. It was against this backdrop of mounting pressure and unfinished vendettas that the events of spring 2024 unfolded, culminating in the Dalston restaurant shooting that gravely wounded a schoolgirl. On the 29th of May 2024, the Tottenham Turks decided to strike against their rivals on Hackney territory. The target was a group of high-ranking Hackney Turks members who regularly frequented the Evin Turkish restaurant in Dalston. Unbeknownst to them, a carefully planned hit was underway. In the time leading up to the attack, a Tottenham Turks associate named Javon Riley had been conducting reconnaissance on the restaurant. Riley, 33, was not Turkish himself, but was a hired helper with ties to the Tottenham gang. Prosecutors later revealed that Riley's role was to scout out the targets, confirm their presence, and then assist the gunman. On that night, once Riley had signaled that the intended victims were in place at the outside table, at 9:20 p.m., a masked gunman riding a stolen high-powered Ducati motorcycle sped up to the curb in front of the restaurant. A man opened fire through the restaurant's glass frontage, aiming at the men sitting outside. He fired about 5 to 6 shots in rapid succession. One bullet struck the 9-year-old girl in the head, just as she was waiting for ice cream at her family's table. The attack was over almost as quickly as it began. In barely 2 seconds, the gunman emptied his weapon and sped off. The 3 male victims, though bleeding from their wounds, survived, injured but alive. The little girl, however, lay unconscious, gravely hurt by the headshot. Paramedics rushed the child to the hospital with critical injuries as police sealed off the bustling street and began hunting for the perpetrators. Detectives on the scene recognized the injured men as affiliates of the Hackney Turks and suspected this was a planned gangland assassination. Investigators also discovered how narrowly the suspected target of the hit escaped. Information emerged that Beytullah Gündüz, the man previously marked for death by the Tottenham gang, had been dining with the group that night but left just 17 minutes before the gunman arrived. The 9-year-old girl hovered on the brink of death. An innocent child completely unrelated to this gang war, she became the most tragic casualty of the feud's brutality. Doctors fought to save her life, performing emergency surgery to relieve pressure on her brain and repair the damage. A bullet had lodged deep in her skull, too risky to remove immediately. She was placed on a ventilator in a coma, her fate uncertain. News of the Dalston shooting dominated headlines in the days that followed.
The 9-year-old girl was actually inside the restaurant when she was shot. She'd been having a meal with her family. It was a warm evening and the front of the restaurant was open onto the street.
Police officers were carrying out a forensic search of the road outside the restaurant this afternoon. The motorbike thought to have been used in the attack was found abandoned nearby. Police say it had been stolen earlier.
The idea that a child could be critically injured in a targeted gang hit horrified Londoners. As detectives worked the case, evidence emerged quickly. The getaway motorcycle, a stolen high-end Ducati Monster, was found abandoned a short distance away on Colston Crescent, just a couple hundred meters from the crime scene. Metropolitan Police urged anyone who recognized the motorcyclist or saw the distinctive bike, which had been spotted in the Peckham and Crystal Palace areas as well, to come forward. Meanwhile, the 9-year-old girl's condition remained touch and go through June 2024. The bullet was still lodged in her brain, and doctors were unsure if it could be safely removed. For weeks, the child did not wake. However, in early June, the family's friends shared a small sign of hope. The girl had squeezed her father's hand upon hearing his voice at her bedside. She was showing some responsiveness. After more than 3 months in the hospital and multiple surgeries, doctors managed to rebuild her shattered skull with titanium plates. She eventually emerged from critical condition and began rehabilitation. However, the bullet remained lodged in her brain, too risky to remove, and it left her with lasting physical and cognitive disabilities. In a victim impact statement later, her mother would describe how the once bubbly 9-year-old now struggled with basic tasks and faced a lifetime of therapy and challenges. As the girl fought to recover, police intensified their hunt for the perpetrators. The Metropolitan Police even offered a £15,000 reward for information leading to those who ordered and carried out the shooting. Behind the scenes, law enforcement agencies from multiple countries were now sharing information, suspecting that this London incident was linked to a wider web of Turkish mafia violence across Europe. The attack brought huge police pressure and media attention, the kind of heat that organised gangs try to avoid. Within weeks, the Hackney Turks were already planning to strike back, determined to balance the score by hitting the very top of the Tottenham hierarchy. Less than 6 weeks later, on the 10th of July, the feud's violence came to a head in the unlikeliest of places, a quiet cafe in Chisinau, the capital of Moldova. Sitting outside that day was 41-year-old Izzet Eren, the notorious leader of the Tottenham Turks, and the man suspected to be behind the Dalston hit. Izzet had fled the UK and Turkey, and was hiding in Moldova as he tried to evade both rivals and law enforcement. On that summer afternoon, footage showed a figure wearing a motorcycle helmet approached Izzet from behind and suddenly fired 7 shots at him at point-blank range. Caught completely off guard, Izzet Eren was struck multiple times in the back and head, killing him instantly. The assassin then slipped away amid the panic of bystanders. Moldovan authorities quickly determined this was no ordinary murder, but a targeted hit in the Turks gang feud. British investigators, in cooperation with Moldovan police, strongly suspected that Kemal Armağan, the vengeful boss of the Hackney Turks, was behind this killing. In fact, Kemal Armağan himself was allegedly the triggerman. Reports indicated he traveled to Moldova, disguised himself in a helmet, and used an electric bicycle for the approach. This was the ultimate act of revenge for Armağan, avenging the murders of his brother Ali in 2012 and countless other attacks. In March 2025, Turkish police arrested a man in the coastal city of Izmir, Turkey, carrying a false identity document. It turned out to be Kemal Armağan, on the run after the Moldova hit. At the time of his capture, Armağan was not only wanted for Izzet Eren's murder. Turkish authorities also wanted him in connection with at least 3 other murders. Armağan's arrest in 2025 removed the longtime Hackney Turks leader from the streets, but the feud cycle had already reached a bloody crescendo. Another arrest tied to Izzet's murder, an ex-lawyer from London named Topa Hassan, who happened to be married to Kemal Armağan's sister. Investigators allege that he was recruited by his brother-in-law Armağan to help orchestrate the logistics of Izzet Eren's murder. In late 2025, a British judge ruled that Topa Hassan could be extradited to Moldova to face conspiracy charges for his part in the assassination plot. The Metropolitan Police and Crown Prosecution Service successfully prosecuted Javon Riley, the Tottenham-affiliated fixer who aided the Dalston shooting. Riley was the only suspect from that attack in custody. The actual gunman remained at large. In August 2025, a jury found Javon Riley guilty of 3 counts of attempted murder and causing grievous bodily harm with intent to the 9-year-old girl. He performed reconnaissance, selected the moment to strike, and then acted as the getaway driver, ferrying the shooter from the scene in a stolen car, which they later burned to destroy evidence. Throughout proceedings, Riley refused to name who had hired him, saying he feared for his life if he talked. On the 12th of September 2025, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 34 years behind bars. Despite these successes, police remain vigilant. Organized crime experts warn that the feud is likely not over. Dr. Mahmut Cengiz, a criminology expert on the Turkish underworld, commented that eliminating a group's leader only fuels the cycle further, as the rival faction will seek to prove its dominance with new attacks. There are other factors at play too. International drug market shifts have raised the stakes for these gangs. The Taliban's ban on poppy cultivation in Afghanistan in 2022 caused a drug supply crunch globally, which intensified competition among European traffickers. The feud between the Tottenham Turks and Hackney Turks has spanned roughly 2 decades, leaving a trail of bodies across London and reaching into Europe. What began in 2009 as a bar fight over bruised pride escalated into a mafia-style war involving international contract killings, prison escapes, and countless lives lost. It ranks among the most violent gang conflicts Britain has seen in recent memory.